Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOLLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Random. Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. Welcome aboard, Bridge MCP. Welcome aboard, Paul Fleming. Welcome aboard, Julie Henderson. Yes, it's Happy Friday. Bridge MCP says from the New Zealand Herald, footage has surfaced of the Trump family in a celebratory mood shortly before violence erupted in Washington, D.C. and their supporters stormed the Capitol. The footage taken by Donald Trump Jr. shows his father, sister Ivanka, brother Eric, girlfriend Kimberly Guilfoyle, and who else is there? Guilfoyle, Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, and several others watching in a tent as their Save America march got underway in the streets. Donald Jr. films his girlfriend Kimberly dancing among the party atmosphere and is heard urging Trumpists to fight for the departing U.S. president. President Donald Trump also appears to be wearing boxing gloves as he prepares to give his speech just before the chaos unfolded on the Capitol. Yes, that was our president just before his insurrection started. And for those who believed, those people who believed that's our leader, that's our grand champion, guess what happened, brothers and sisters? They were lied to as usual one more time. They thought there was a plan. There was a plan. The vice president was going to be a part of the plan. There was something to do. There was something to win. We were going to find a way to keep Brother Trump in power. I was receiving messages all over the internet. We can do this. We're going to keep him in power. We're going to use all these different methods to do what? Keep him in power. Well, here is what they're talking about now. This is what's interesting. Let me show you on the screen. I think it's important. Here's the headline. Dejected Trump supporters leave Washington. Create new theories for Capitol violence. In other words, they're leaving Washington dejected. They're leaving Washington with their master leaving power, likely to be impeached or removed from office. And they're now saying dejected Trump supporters leave Washington, D.C. A Trump supporter cried in the lobby of the Capitol Hill Hotel on Thursday as she poured herself a cup of coffee and told her friend and her son had disowned her for joining in Wednesday's chaos at the Capitol. But minutes later, when the driver of a car yelled a group of haggard Trump supporters to get out of the city, she joined the chorus to respond with their own explicatives. But guess what? They're gone. They're leaving. They're dejected. Why? Because Trump, as he has always done, he has never come through for anyone but himself. He wanted to create a spectacle for live TV, something that he can use later on. He wanted to keep this thing going so that he could have collected as much money as he could from these guys, over $500 million. Suckers. We tried to tell you. When all of you guys were talking about everything, sorry about it being out of sync, guys. I don't know what's causing it. But when we talk about, oh my God, it's going to be so great. It's going to be so great. Something is going to be happening. Something is going to be happening. Sorry. We told you so. We told you so. Anyhow, what do we have today for our show? Today we have a great show lined up for you. The title of the show today is Republicans and Trump are responsible for the insurrection. Then Helen Lee, she told me how to say this. Her name is Helen Lee Bouygues, Helen Lee Bouygues on fake news and critical thinking. So let's go ahead and get busy with our first video here. Like I said, guess who is, we were warned about this before. We were warned about this. So let me go ahead and play it and then we'll move on from here. Let me go play it right now and then we'll take it from there. Back in 2009, President Obama's DHS found out. They try to explain, they try to tell people that the biggest threat America had was the white supremacist, the right-wing white supremacist terrorists. That was our biggest threat. If you take a look at those attacks that we've had that have killed Americans, except for 2001 when we had the 9/11, it has always been these right-wingers that have caused problems, that have killed, that have maimed in America. Now, when that report came out, the Republicans went crazy. Oh, that is not so. That is really an attack on veterans, an attack on this, or it's a right-wing attack. All that sort of stuff they started to come out with. Okay? It turns out that if you draw the charts from the time Obama's report came out till the current time, that is what we've seen. I want you to listen to this person here that participated in the insurrection against the United States at the Capitol in D.C. this week, and then we'll take it on the other side.
I want to turn now to Ellison Barber in D.C. Tell us what's going on with these arrests.
Hey, Stephanie, we know police were at hotels. They were at D.C. airports looking for the rioters who stormed the United States Capitol. We've heard that at least 80 people have been arrested, 55 charged with crimes like theft, unlawful entry, assault, weapons charges. One rioter allegedly had 11 Molotov cocktails. I met one man right before all of the chaos happened, before the rioters started storming all sides of the United States Capitol. We didn't see him after we spoke to him. We don't know if he was part of the rioters who actually stormed the United States Capitol. But talking to him, he seemed to know something Capitol Police did not, that there was talk before it happened of people rushing the Capitol. Listen here.
We don't need to be rushing the Capitol, although it's going to get a lot worse if the courts continue to shirk their responsibilities.
What do you think happens after the Electoral College votes are counted here?
I think it's entirely possible that 1 million armed men show up here to fix the problem. God, I hope that never happens. But if, like I said, and I'm not the first person to say it, there's a lot of famous leadership that's come through history that has made this point in various ways. If you do not give the people a legal way to resolve their grievances, violence is ultimately always the result.
He, like so many of the rioters and protesters we met that day, were convinced the election was fraudulent, that Vice President Mike Pence had the authority to throw out Electoral College votes, and that the courts were part and are part of some big conspiracy.
So as you see, the Obama administration warned that the biggest threat to America was domestic. It was the right-wing white supremacist terrorists, guys like what you just saw there. The report was titled Right-Wing Extremism, Current Economic and Political Climate Fueling Resurgence in Radicalization and Recruitment. And again, like I mentioned, Republicans they were pissed that somehow their people would be implicated in that. But ultimately, Secretary Janet Napolitano subsequently withdrew the report. She then apologized to veterans because the report was characterized as veterans being called out. Republicans bear full responsibility for the insurrection this week. They raised the heat. They raised hell when the Obama administration identified the growing problem. They coddled a white supremacist president. These or their media networks lied to their audience that allowed these right-wing networks to metastasize within Republican strongholds. They joined the president in fallacies, claiming that the election was fraudulent. And then the Republican president issued the order to march on the Capitol. He told them to be strong. Wink, wink. He told them to be strong. The responsibility for what occurred, the responsibility for the insurrection is on Ted Cruz. It's on all the senators and Congress people that supported the fallacy that somehow the election was not legitimate. They provided the catalyst for the insurrection. The president provided the match. The president became the arsonist. The senators became the catalyst. And the people just were who they are, who they've always been, the people that was identified by the Obama administration as being the biggest threat to the American people. And we have to remember that, folks. Let's get serious about it. This was not only prognosticated by the Obama administration, when the Obama administration said the biggest threat to this country was not the foreign terrorists, it wasn't those Muslims, right? It wasn't those people coming from the outside. It was from within. It was the white supremacists, the militias. It was those people with those big guns, those people that are buying those things. Those were always going to be our threat. You know, so while we're looking elsewhere, these people are amassing and getting ready for sedition, insurrection. And they tried to execute it, but luckily, their leader was such an incompetent buffoon. I hate to use that word here, but their leader was so incompetent that he couldn't do it the right way. But suppose Donald Trump wasn't as incompetent as he was. Then they could have been successful. They could have gone in there and wiped out our Congress. And people say, well, so what? I mean, and then we'd have, no matter what, we'd have new votes, new things. They could have really done damage if Donald Trump really had a plan, if Donald Trump was not as incompetent. But guess who also knew that Donald Trump was this evil? Guess who also knew that Donald Trump was coddling the white supremacists, intent on using them as well? Republicans knew it. Check this out.
Meanwhile, after the president's supporters stormed the Capitol from the outside as his elected allies inside try to overturn Biden's victory, the country and the Republican Party are faced with the question of what now? As our colleague Benji Sarlin reminds us, Republicans were the ones that warned this day could come. During the 2016 campaign, Trump's rivals warned Trump was fomenting violence, but they became enthusiastic Trump supporters anyway. One of the more prominent ones was Rick Perry, who warned of and told the story of the know-nothings. And they came up and attacked the Capitol in the 1850s. Anyway, and here we are. And that was the famous Cancer on Conservatism speech that Rick Perry gave. Of course, he became the Energy Secretary. Joined now by Asa Hutchinson. He's the Republican governor of Arkansas. Governor Hutchinson, I want to talk COVID here in a second, but I got to get your reaction here on what happened Wednesday and where you think the Republican Party goes next.
Well, thank you, Chuck. And obviously what we saw in the halls of Congress at our nation's capital was distressing for every American who loves our institutions. It was embarrassing on the global stage. I've been in Congress, and it really hurt me to see we lost a Capitol police officer there. Other lives were lost. It's something that should have never happened. And so we've got to come together. We've got to be resilient, as our democracy always is, and get through to the next administration and have a successful transition. In terms of responding a little bit to Representative Clyburn, who I have great respect for, we do have good Republican leadership that have taken a strong stand. I mean, you have Mitch McConnell, Republican leader, who stood against the president and made it clear we're going to proceed on the electoral votes. You had, Mitt Romney, as well as Tom Cotton, and on down the list. And so you can't paint Republican leadership on all one side. They took some very courageous stands, and we need to figure out the right way to get to the next administration. We've got to remember this transition is so critical. And while I
Governor,
respect some of those.
Go ahead. Finish.
you
I'm
make
sorry.
the point. Go ahead.
The Zoom interruption. No. What I want to ask you, I find the word courageous an odd term. And the reason I ask that, should it be courageous to believe in the vote count and to believe in that states did their jobs? I mean, there's a lot of people that wouldn't think that was courageous. They would think that that was just another day at the office.
Use a different adjective, but the fact is that they did the right thing for our country, regardless of what President Trump believed should be done. And so there's not a number, just simply Trump followers. They're making independent decisions for the good of our country, and I respect that. Call it what you want, but that's what happened, and I'm grateful for their leadership.
All right. Okay. I hope you enjoyed that. That was a good one. But remember, the people who called Donald Trump very dangerous first were Republicans. The people who understood that Donald Trump was capable of doing these things were Republicans. And after Donald Trump became the president, they sold their souls, first of all, to vote for him beforehand, and secondly, to simply kowtow to him. So when I give this program today a title that says Republicans and Trump are responsible for the insurrection, I mean it to the core. Now, to answer a few questions, to my brother Lee Grant, you mentioned about Antifa. I don't know how else to express this to people. Antifa is not an organized group. Antifa is a meme, okay? Bunch of people get together to do something crazy. They call themselves Antifa. It stands for anti-fascist, okay? Antifa is not a group. So stop believing what the right wing is telling you. It's not.